Madam Mayor, the candidate before you is Ms. Michelle Neuner. Ms. Neuner, thank you for being here with us this afternoon. I have a series of prepared questions that I will ask you, and then after every question, the board will have an opportunity to provide any follow-up questions that they may have. Then they have some questions that they will ask you at the conclusion of the interview.
Okay, thank you.
All right. First question, please provide a brief recap of your professional credentials and your work experience related to the opportunity before you this afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm thankful to be here today and appreciate your consideration of my resume. My name is Michelle Neuner, and I am currently the Assistant City Manager for the City of Winter Park, Florida. And I've been in that role for approximately 11 years at this time. In that role, I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for the City of Winter Park. I have 8 departments that report directly to me, 5 departments and 3 divisions, which include the Office of Management and Budget, which also has our CRA and Economic Development Division. I have Human Resources, I have Purchasing, Information Technology, Public Works, Parks and Rec, Water and Wastewater, and then the Electric Utilities. So those are the departments that report directly to me on a daily basis. Prior to joining the City of Winter Park, I was with the City of Maitland, and I served as the Administrative Services and Budget Manager at the City of Maitland. So I had full responsibility of the budget development for the City of Maitland, as well as filling in with various needs. Maitland was a smaller city, and so I did a stint working as a utility billing supervisor. I had the senior center for a brief period of time. I had the communications department, and so just as needed, I filled in with my duties in addition to being the budget manager. So that's a quick recap of my resume.
Is there any follow-ups from the board? Okay. Next question. Please tell us why you are interested in this position.
I'm interested in this position because I see Madeira Beach as a beautiful community with a great opportunity to share my talents. It looks like Madeira Beach is specifically looking for somebody with strength in budgeting and employee development, and I think that those are 2 areas in which I really can bring a lot to the table. From a personal perspective, my family is looking to move to this area, and when I evaluated the many cities in Pinellas County, I really felt like being part of a quaint small city where you could get to know the community and be part of the community was important to me and comfortable in my career.
Any follow-ups from the board? What are your 3 main professional goals over the next 5 to 10 years?
So obviously my first professional goal is to become a city manager. I have spent my career leading and developing to this point, and so that would be my first goal. My second goal would be to really be part of a community where I can make a difference and have a lasting impact. I'm not somebody who's looking to quickly move to another community or job hop. I have spent my entire career in 2 communities at this point, and so I want to be part of a community that's family-oriented and stay and really make an impact. And then a third professional goal of mine would be to earn a certification in planning.
Okay. Any follow-ups from the board? Okay. What are the most important characteristics and attributes of an effective manager? And of these attributes, which one best describes your character/demeanor?
Okay, so obviously to be a city manager, it's not just managing, it's leadership. And so when you talk about leadership, I think in every decision you make and in every situation you're evaluating, you really have to consider the vision, the strategy, the culture, and the team. And so I always look to those 4 things when I'm evaluating something. So, you know, where do we want to go as a community? How do we get there? And how do we get there efficiently and cost effectively? And then does it fit with the culture? Is it something that the community is going to appreciate? And finally, how will the team grow as a part of making that decision? And so, you know, I know team development is important and bringing that team along in your decision-making.
Any follow-ups from the board? Okay. What do you believe is the greatest challenge and greatest opportunity this position offers?
So I think the greatest challenge is to have the opportunity to really find some common goals and build a strategy. I learned from the department heads that there's an interest in building a citywide master plan, and so to much of the effort has already been started, is what I understand, to develop that. And so to get an opportunity to work to complete that master plan and then build a strategy that surrounds the master plan for accomplishing it, I think that's an interesting challenge. And then there's obviously so much opportunity. This is a beautiful community, and ensuring that the environmental resources are well managed and protecting the eclectic nature and the quaintness of the individual neighborhoods. I think those are wonderful opportunities that are available here.
Any follow-up questions from the board? Okay. The city seeks to embark on a major infrastructure plan, and a general millage increase may be one of the mechanisms that is used to fund the debt service associated with this plan. What measures would you take to ensure that the money is utilized judiciously, and how would you anticipate managing the projects to ensure that they come in below budget and on time?
So I had an opportunity to meet a couple of folks from the budget committee this morning, and they seem like a great resource that is really available to help evaluate how to prioritize projects, how to spend the money wisely, and probably would be a good resource in terms of making that decision to consider an increase in the millage rate. I mean, obviously that's not something that folks want to consider lightly. And so having them as a resource in the community to help educate folks on why it was necessary, I think would be really critical. And, as I've read through your budget, I can tell that this community takes their budget seriously and is rather fiscally conservative. And I think that ensuring folks that you are spending it, how you tell them you intend to spend it is going to be critical. And that happens through a lot of transparency, and I'm sure that using some of the tools already available or potentially some new tools to provide updates on the project, provide benchmarks, are ways that will be able to provide confidence that the money's being spent fairly. When it comes to making sure that you're on budget, I mean, I think that it's critical to work with your city engineer and closely with the contractor. Lots of updates and conversations along the way so that you don't end up with unanticipated change orders, or you don't end up in situations where work's being done that you haven't authorized or planned or prepared for. So I think overall, just a lot of communication is what it takes to get people to trust you, and then transparency in terms of sharing what's happening.
Any follow-up from the board? How do you monitor the success/progress of the team you lead?
So I think first and foremost, when you're talking about your department heads and your other leaders in the organization, you can really use performance-based goals and objectives. You can use performance measurement within your budget. And I learned this morning that you're well on your way to building some performance measurement into your everyday operations. So, and then the connectivity, and we talked about that a little this morning too, is taking those goals and objectives and threading them through the organization so that the team members are aware of the expectations from the commission all the way down. And again, I think regular reporting, lots of communication, and then follow-up, quarterly reporting, annual reporting, you can gain a lot from that. It has to be strategically done, because reporting for the sake of reporting is not good. That's taking people's time away from their job. But if you're reporting based on performance metrics and goals that have been aligned, it's valuable.
Any follow-ups from the board? Describe your experience working with citizens from various cultural backgrounds. What approach have you used to ensure adequate attention is given to the varying needs of these groups?
So working with citizens is one of the main reasons folks like us get into these jobs. I mean, you know, you have a love for people and you have a love for making the community better, and that's why you select this profession, and that's why you pick a community to engage with. And obviously, diversity and inclusion makes your community more rich. And so being attentive to their needs, if it means offering an alternative, something to eat, or offering somebody can help with the language barrier, it just makes them feel more welcome. And anytime that you can learn about somebody else's culture and be respectful of their culture in their environment, I think you can grow a better relationship and enhance their ability to participate.
Any follow-ups from the board? Okay. In a concise manner, please describe how you would develop and implement a strategic plan for the city of Madeira Beach.
Okay. So I think it really starts from the top, learning the goals and objectives of the City Commission and where they're trying to move the city forward. And then you take those goals and objectives down to the bottom, and you talk to the staff about how and where they think that they can get there. And your job as the city manager is to take the ideas of the staff and the goals of the commission, bring them together and blend them. And your job is to take the tools and make efficient and succinct plans so that it can be seen through and developed through.
Any follow-ups? What can city government accomplish during an economic downturn when revenue declines and the city seeks to provide consistent services?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't quite hear the end.
What can a city government accomplish during an economic downturn when revenue is declining and the city seeks to provide consistent services?
So I think if you're a well-prepared community, and I know that this community is because it has a healthy reserve, you know, really prioritize and really prioritizing what stabilizes the community in terms of service would be important. And again, that would be an open conversation to have with the city commission. But, you know, looking at your core values and looking at what makes your community stable, and then prioritizing from there and spending wisely will guide you through that.
And this is the last standard question that I have. How quickly can you start after an approved contract?
I would be required to give a 30-day notice.
That concludes the questions that I have. This is the opportunity for the Board of Commissioners to ask any questions that they have prepared.
Hi, Ms. Newman. My first one is tourism is our main focus here in town. How would you implement ideas or concerns to continue their success?
So I'm familiar with tourism to the extent that in Winter Park, we're sort of the respite for folks that are heading to Disney or to the big theme parks. And so Winter Park is a place where people might take the day off, come and enjoy lunch, have a boat tour, participate in some of our art museums. And we really enjoy having those people come to our community and spend the day. And so I know that it's important here, and it's a much stronger industry here. And so, you know, I think utilizing the services of the chamber, I know that the chamber's highly focused on bringing the tourism, and then I know you have a TDT here, and so participating with them and joining in any opportunities to work with them, I think are both goals. And clearly, if I'm able to come join you, that's on a a 60-day plan for me is to get to know all of those people and learn about how I can contribute to a team experience to continue bringing the success here. And I will tell you, in Orlando, probably #1 commercial on the radio is visit Clearwater St. Pete Beach area. That's almost always on the radio.
Okay, great. My next question is, grants are really important for projects to be completed or even started. How often in the past did you apply for grants, and what is your success rate?
So our city's been very successful in both receiving grants and appropriations from the state. And I would say that my role has historically been in reviewing and tweaking and improving the grant that somebody else has written. However, I can write a grant, and I have done so in the past, but it's been quite some time. We've had a fairly high success rate. Our success has been in stormwater grants, and then we've had grants for undergrounding. We own our own electric utility, so it's a slightly different setup than here. We've had some Parks and Rec grants, some fairly substantial Parks and Rec grants, and we just recently earned a $6 million TDT grant for an event center that we're building in our community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
I know a thing or two about Winter Park. On a side note, I spent the first 2 years of college at a little school on the lake there in Winter Park, and after spending a little bit too much time on Park Avenue, we kind of mutually agreed that I'd finish my degree at Stetson in DeLand. So, great place. I loved it. A couple quick things. I love your budget background and your financial background. Those are some serious key things that we need here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the fact that we had, in a recent election, we've installed an ICMA requirement for our city manager. And you're probably familiar with Tenant 4, and I think I know the answer to this because you have a home here in Reddington, but you would be our third city manager in the last 2 years, and basically my question is, we need some stability here. Are you planning to stick around, or?
Yes, actually, your department head's already asked me the same question with
Okay.
that tentative eye. And I am planning to stick around. I do have a home here. This is a long-term goal of my husband and I to live here. At the meet and greet, I mentioned this morning that we are empty nesters for the first time. And so we raised our children in a great family environment where they got to grow up playing baseball and football and lacrosse, and they are gone to college and flourishing, and it is our time to move to the beach. And
Excellent.
it is time for my next chapter.
Yeah, well, I don't like Reddington. I think we should build a wall, and we'll make Reddington pay for it. Well,
Well,
I didn't go
We're
there,
going to need
did
a little
I?
overpass.
I didn't say that. Come on. Anyway, we have had, okay, and the last thing, and, the questions focused a lot on more board-related things, and the one thing that I'm really concerned about is our staff. And I will correct myself. In 2017, we had a turnover rate of 59.4%. In 2018, it was 30.3%. So for a total of 2 years of 89.7%. That's a lot of new people here. I just want to let you know that what you're getting into, I mean, you seem to have the right mentality and the right attitude, because building and building the morale of this staff is going to be really important, and I think we really have to pay a little focus on that as well.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
Nice to talk to you again. I have a couple of questions that I just would like to pass by you. What is your policy? I know that you're not a full city manager, but I know that you probably do this with a lot of your staff as you have them now. What's your policy about meeting with individual commissioners, and you might do that now, okay, with regards to certain, not projects, but prior to the city commission meetings? Do you meet with them to get their perspective or to give them yours on a certain project or on a certain goal that you want to accomplish? And I meet individually besides the regular, workshop and commission meetings.
Sure, we do currently meet with our commission individually, and we'll do it in one of two ways. We'll do it as a session where the city commissioner can just come in and ask some questions, and we have a couple of new commissioners, and they're just trying to learn about our city, and so they want the opportunity to come sit with us and sort of get the facts and learn about what's going on, and maybe not have to ask those questions in the public, just about how things work and exist. So we'll meet to talk about that. But then if we also have something on the agenda that we think might be a little challenging or might draw quite a few people and just want the commissioner to have a full briefing and background, we'll also sit down and meet with them one-on-one. In my time in Maitland had a procedure in place where they asked if one commissioner asked for some work to be done, let's say a spreadsheet to be developed or a list of information to be developed, that would be shared with all the commissioners. And so maybe one commissioner would ask for something to be developed, but then all 5 commissioners would get the benefit of the data that was put together. So
So you encourage that, you like that?
I think the more data and the more information, the better.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have one more question, I guess. What's your policy about, or what do you feel like would be your policy if you were city manager with regards to individual commissioners going to department heads and employees and routing information to them or asking them to do something, complete a project or any, did you get my gist there?
Sure.
Okay.
So, I know that you all are a council manager form of government. And so, in that form of government, that means that the city manager is running the day-to-day operations of the government. And so certainly as a new city manager in a city that's got a relatively new staff, it would be really important to me to be involved in the conversation so that I can learn. So that's not to say that I would never want you to speak to a staff member, but I would appreciate the opportunity to be involved in the conversation. And I clearly am not the expert in every situation, but to learn and hear what you're learning, I think would be important to me as I'm growing in my role.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple questions. What experience do you have with redevelopment projects, and in particular, how do you balance developments to preserve small-town feel?
Okay, so I know that you're familiar with Winter Park because we had a good conversation about Central Florida. And Winter Park is a lot like Madeira Beach in that respect. It's a beautiful city and it's landlocked, so there's no new land. And so the only development that can occur is redevelopment. And so I think, when you're looking at redevelopment, you really have to look at smart growth and you have to look at how it's going to impact, obviously, the planning document, the guiding planning document, I've lost the word now, but your planning documents would control some of the discussion, and then you'll have plan developments to deal with. But I think, it again takes a lot of conversation, communication. We always encourage our developers in Winter Park to host community meetings, and I don't know if that's something that you've done in the past or not, but we really like to see the developers interact with the community. And I missed our meeting last night, but we just had an office developer come forward with a plan that 6 months ago was rejected, and he spent 6 months meeting with the community, and the community came out in favor of his project last night. So I think it can be done with the right amount of communication and conversation.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. How do you build consensus among groups with different objectives and agendas?
So I always say this, in small towns, people are very passionate about their community, and that's part of the reason you live in a small town is because you want to be involved and you're passionate about your community. And I think people sometimes feel like they're this far apart, and they're really this far apart because they all love the community. And sometimes what it takes is some good old conversation again, and you may not be able to make either side 100% satisfied, but if you listen carefully, you can probably find things that both are looking for, who are for and against various projects. And if you can find that middle ground and you can find 3 or 4 things within each project that people will be satisfied with, I think that that's the way you can move forward sometimes.
Okay. And lastly, what is the biggest mistake you've made, and what did you learn from that mistake?
Oh, my goodness. I once made a mistake where a public record that wasn't a public record left our office. And having to deal with that, I think, was quite a lesson about managing the public records better. It just the document got away from someone on my staff, and so I had to own that mistake because it was coming from my office, and then I had to work on getting that document back. And so that was a good lesson about also following your staff very closely when it's really important issues. That was early in my career.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
That concludes the questions from the board. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I would love to ask some questions, but I know that you all are behind on time, so is it appropriate to ask?
Sure.
Okay, I don't want to delay your day. I would just be interested from each commissioner's perspective what the most critical thing coming is in the next 30 or 60 days. I guess it would probably be more like 60 days, you know. I know the budget's coming, and that's really critical, and I learned it's well underway already from the budget committee members. But I'd be interested to know what you see as the biggest thing coming.
Will you start me? Oh, sure. Okay. That's a good question. There's a few things. I think we have some holes on staff that have to be filled. We are without a public works director and a marina director, which is a very important position to fill here, especially with hurricane season coming up and the potential of red tide coming back. We need some leadership down at the marina and being able to kind of point everybody in the right direction. So that's a position I hope that we get filled pretty quickly.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to mention this or not, but I'm concerned over our city clerk. She's done a great job as far as I was concerned, and I don't want to lose her. But another thing is, too, that of course we're losing our city manager. So we have two key positions that are way up there on the top of the list. And to me, we really can't afford to be left without the captain of the ship. Let's put it that way. And those are my concerns. And I really feel like the sooner we can get this all squared away and taken care of, the sooner we can move forward with everything else that we have on the plate that needs to be done and completed. So right now, those are my concerns.
And I kind of mimic Vice Mayor Hodges' feelings on that. Yeah, nothing to add.
I would say staffing is a concern right now, but we've been in that position before, so it's going to take some time to remedy some of the things. And just learning how the city can come together better instead of being really, there's no coming together right now. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, and we appreciate you spending the day with us.
Thank
for your
you. I
time.
enjoyed being here, and I hope to have the opportunity to see you all again.